Hey everyone, Dr. Yen here, and I want to welcome you to Module 3. So Module 1, you learn the overall research process and kind of the nitty-gritty behind some of the different steps that academics undergo in order to create research, which is what you're going to be doing at ISU. And then in Module 2, you explored basically four big places, search tools that you use in order to find the information you need for that research, right? So it would be web search engines like Google. It would be Google Scholar. It would be quick search from the library, and then those library subject-specific databases. Okay, 3 is going to be a little bit different. 3 is really about search techniques. So you got a little bit of a basic start in Module 2 when you did Boolean, simple Boolean search terms, and when you did phrase searching. 3 is basically saying, okay, here are the 4 main tools you're going to use, and this is how you're going to use them. So armchair research, we're going to put that aside. Now you're going to research like a researching academic rock star. The thing about Module 3 that makes it a little bit different is that it's very similar to if you're driving or learning how to drive a car. The other 2 modules, and probably for a lot of classes that you've been used to, it's about learning information with the driver's manual. But in 3, it's about honing your search skills. It's like being behind the wheel of a car. You can't really be a good driver unless you have experience driving, right? Module 3, I want you to give yourselves time to practice the different search techniques that we are going to be giving you in this module. So hopefully in the last module, when we talked about quick search, you tried quick search. When we talked about subject-specific databases, you tried subject-specific databases. I want you to go back, learn the technique, and then do it in these different search tools so you become really comfortable with it. And the reason why this is going to be important is because you're going to get to a point where you do a search and maybe you have 10 million results. If you know how to craft a really good search strategy, you will get exactly what you want in maybe the first 10 things that you find when it comes to academic information, scholarly information. And that's really what we want, okay? So with that said, skills take time. There's not a lot of shortcuts. It's just like learning how to drive. You can't just shortcut the amount of time it takes to practice. And so in the beginning, when we talked about Start Here in the Start Here module, remember we said you should be studying at least 7 hours a week for this course? Module 3 is really when you need that time. And so please make sure you plan that out and make sure you practice. The other thing I also want to mention is that in certain cases, and again, this comes from my learning theory background, you can't just learn things from reading a book, right? You can't just learn things from doing the interactives. Sometimes you need to talk it out. Sometimes you need to pull up the computer, start the search, and then have somebody you can tap on the shoulder and be like, okay, am I doing this right? This is not coming up. What do I need to do next? You need another person. This is the reason why I'm saying, like, through the Academic Success Center, there are learning groups that you can be a part of, Lib 1600 accountability groups. I will share the link again in the announcements for you. But also, if you can find a study buddy that's also in Lib 1600 right now, there are going to be about 5,900 students taking this course this semester. I'm pretty sure you can probably find a study buddy or two. Sit together and go through some of these techniques. Or reach out to your subject librarian or me, right? My office hours are on Tuesdays from 2 to 3, or you can also arrange by appointment and come in and start talking some of these things over. Again, one of the reasons why I kind of emphasize Module 3 is historically, this is the hardest module in the entire course. It's the one that students have the most difficulty with. There's two reasons for that. One, just like I said before, you need to spend some time in it. This is not a crammable module because you have to practice. But the other reason is, and I think I talked about this a little bit, but I want to put this on your radar. Examageddon is coming, okay? And if this is your first semester here at ISU, it hits hard. Examageddon is when you are faced with 2 or 3 or more midterms or projects all within 1 week. It's going to leave your head spinning. You're going to have very little sleep. You may have high stress levels because you have probably never experienced Examageddon until now. I'm telling you this ahead of time because you're going to get into it in the next couple weeks. Module 3 tends to get kind of put on the wayside because everybody is like in panic and survival mode to get through Examageddon, and with a lot of understanding. What I'm telling you is that there are ways to make Examageddon a little bit easier. One of those ways is you may want to study ahead and get quizzes 3 and 4 out of the way now while you have time. That's one of the things I really strongly suggest. The other thing is, in the announcements, I'm going to give you a link to a calendar planner template. I'm going to share those with you again. I highly, highly, highly suggest mapping out when your midterms and when your assignments are due. Take a look at them. When you have 2 or 3 midterms within 1 week, it's Examageddon. Plan accordingly, which means you may want to change when you study. You may want to change what you're studying. You may want to prioritize different things during those times, okay? If you do that now, if you plan ahead now and you can kind of predict that Examageddon is coming, you can at least be a little bit more prepared when it hits. And the reason why this happens is because the drop date and the midterm date is in October. So your instructors want to be able to give you some sort of assessment so that you know how you're doing in your classes. And so what ends up happening is everybody kind of gives those assessments at the same time. It's not deliberate, it's just how it works. But now that you know about it and you have been forewarned, please plan for Examageddon. For some of you, if you have the time this week, you may even want to do all of your modules. So, pass 3, then 4, and then 5, and then even take your final. I know there's a few students that have already taken and passed their finals. So, and if you do it that way, that's great, because then you have that time to focus on your other classes. Again, however way you want to do it, that is up to you, but you need to be forewarned to know when it's coming, okay? Now, there are 3 fairly new concepts that you're going to be hitting in this module. Last module, we talked a little bit about Booleans so that you could get used to the capital and, or, and the not. In this module, we're going to show you how to go a little bit further. So remember in Module 1, we started talking about essential elements and keywords. We're going to now expand that a little bit because when you're doing your searches, oftentimes the authors and scholars that you're following may not be using the same keywords that you might be using. And that can be a problem because if you're doing a search for information using this set of keywords and the authors that you want are using a different set of keywords, well, you're not going to find them. So search strategies are here to teach you how to actually match the keywords so that you can actually get to the information that you need and are looking for. Booleans, you can think of this module as learning advanced Booleans or nested Boolean techniques, which I like to call Booleans extreme, because now we're going to combine all of these different keywords that you've been finding, those essential elements, with a combination of and, or, and not to really craft an effective strategy to harpoon the information that you need right away. So that it makes everything easier, okay? In this video, and this is part of the reason why it's a little bit long, I'm going to link you to a video that our other librarian, Ms. Becca Yoler, did about nested Boolean searches. It's also in your module, but I just wanted to put it here so that at least you kind of get the overview. The other thing I'm adding into this video is citation chaining. The video talks a little bit about it. Citation chaining is one of the most powerful ways you can find related information to your assignments. Say, for example, you find this author and the author's work, which we call it an original source, right? This paper that you know you need for your assignment, you want to find more stuff like that. Citation chaining is basically two techniques to help you do that. You citation chain forward and you citation chain backward. And what you're basically doing is finding the conversations around that piece of paper that you are putting into your assignment. Because again, your assignments are mostly academic conversations, right? So you're kind of gathering around what everybody is saying and speaking. That's citation chaining. In addition to citation chaining, in order to do citation chaining, you have to understand citations. One thing that always kind of actually tripped me up when I was first learning it, is you're going to hear two terms, item records and citations. Item records are produced by quick search, library results, and search tools. So, for example, when I Google and I get all those Google results, those are item records. When I use the library's quick search and I'm bringing up, the results that come from quick search, each one of those is an item record, okay? That's done by databases. That's done by search tools. Citations are written by authors and scholars to cite or mention the information that they used to support the arguments that they have in their papers. Citations and item records have almost the same information. They have author names, they have publication dates, they have titles, and so on and so forth. Okay, but again, they're found in two different places, and yes, there is slightly different information. For example, citations, you're probably not going to find abstracts. Item records, you will. You still need to know, though, how to read citations. You need to know the difference between a citation that's citing a book versus a citation that's citing an academic journal versus a citation that's citing a conference proposal. Why? Because if you know what that citation is, what type of information material it is, book, journal, DVD, whatever it is, you can filter it in your search tool, right? Remember those filters? We're going to go into a little bit more detail about that too in Module 3. So that's why it's so important to be able to read a citation. Citations have certain clues to tell you what kind of material that is. And again, I'm going to kind of put that video in here as well so that you can see that. You don't have to listen to everything from start to finish. If you click on this video in YouTube, there is actually a table of contents so that you can kind of skip to the sections that you want, okay? The other thing, like I said before, this is the other thing I'm noticing too, because I've seen a few students now. I've seen a couple of you in my office. When you're taking your quizzes, the quizzes are open note. They are open like almost everything, which means if a quiz is saying go into quick search and do this, or quick search is doing this, you don't have to think of it at the top of your head. You can open a new tab, bring up quick search, and take a look. And that's really what we want you to do. It's a really important skill because not only are your quizzes going to ask you to do that, but also on your final, You're going to be asked to go to certain databases and so on and so forth. This is not something we want you to memorize in your head. We don't want you to just be a walking Lib 1600 dictionary. We want you to be a skilled researcher. And in order to do that, these are kind of the skills that you're learning as you go along the way, okay? And skilled researchers don't memorize everything. They know where to go to look it up. That's what we want you to do as well, all right? If you have any questions, if you need any help with any of this stuff, please feel free to reach out to me. You've got my contact information. You can drop by during office hours, set an appointment either virtually or in person. I also have candy. So, come and see me and ace those quizzes, okay? Alrighty. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, so we have come up with a research question. It makes sense. It's not too fuzzy. It's focused. It's clear. And we are ready to do research. Great. What next? Well, I'm here to tell you the best way to do some Boolean searching, and we're going to learn it with a Venn diagram. So we're going to start with our question. And because we're having fun, we're going to research Pokemon. So our research question is, in what way can classifying Pokemon help a player find success in battle? The first thing we're going to do is find the main concepts in our question. And our main concepts are classifying Pokemon, and ultimately, we are talking about player success. Okay? So we have three main topics. If you'll notice, we have three circles. Let's draw a Venn diagram. So we have a Venn diagram, and we are just going to put our ideas from our research question into the diagram. Classifying, so we're going to call it classification. Pokemon. And player success. Easy, right? We have three ideas. And now our job as a researcher is to find ways to find that data that will help us make our argument. So we want both synonyms for something in this circle, but we also want other things that have to do with it. It doesn't have to be a direct synonym. This is not a thesaurus.com moment. Okay? So when we're talking about classification of Pokemon, what are some things we might think about? We might think of the type. We might think of its level. We might think of its appraisal. Or we could think of some synonyms for classification. We could think of other words that might mean the same thing, like taxonomy or category or tags. Okay? These are all things that might get us to a similar idea as classification. Okay. What are things that might get us to the similar idea of Pokemon? Now this is a little more difficult because this is a proper noun and there might not be any other. But if we're classifying Pokemon, how are our Pokemon gathered? Maybe it's a Pokédex, right? So there aren't a lot of things that we could think of with Pokemon, and that's okay. That means this search will actually be a little easier. Now, player success. What are things that might indicate player success? What are other ways to think about player success? And what is player success? Well, victory, right? Player success is levels. Player success is increasing your Pokemon collection. So increase collection. I mean, after all, don't we have to catch them all? So, I don't know if you've heard me as I'm saying this over and over again as we're going through each of these circles, but what word have I said a lot? I have said or a whole lot. That's going to be important. Now, when we are doing our searches, we are using Boolean logic. It's fancy. That's why we're talking about it as far as a Venn diagram. When you are comparing items within a circle, so things within a circle, in this case, things that are blue, in a circle is or. Okay? If we are comparing circle to circle, we are using and. And if we are comparing things that we don't want, things that live out here and we don't want in our search, we use not. Okay? Now, here's the fun part. Our searches automatically do this for us when we use an advanced search in one of the databases. When you open up an advanced search, there are squares where you would plug this in. So anything that is in a circle is an or, and it goes in one line. Anything that is not in that circle goes in another line with the word and between them. Now, lines could also be parentheses, boxes, circles, depending on what database you're using, but the concept is the same. So, we are going to search 2 circles at a time. If we search 3 circles at a time and we get a whole bunch of articles, this goes back to what we just talked about with the research question. It's not a research question because somebody else has already done it. So we're going to try, we'll pop it in, but we've already done the work. So we know that this is a solid research question. So we're going to do level to level. So we're going to do classification or type or level or taxonomy and Pokemon or Pokedex. And that is going to give us a certain set of answers. Then we're going to do another search and we're going to do taxonomy or classification or type or category and levels, player success, victory. Now, we're going to do this one more time, and we're going to do Pokemon and player success, or Pokemon or Pokédex, and player success, or levels, or victory, or. Now, you would see that sometimes this search would mean we weren't searching Pokemon at all. Maybe we do this search that's classification and player success, and we get Magic the Gathering. We get another card-based game where we would do the same kind of thing, right? Does that mean that article isn't any good because it doesn't mention Pokemon? Spoiler alert, it does not mean that, because the same principles would apply to Pokemon. A quality deck in Magic will do the same thing as a quality deck in Pokemon. So you can pull those principles from one article to the other. It is okay if it doesn't have all 3. In fact, it's really good because that gives you a chance to do the best part. This is you. This is the answer to your research question. And a 1-sentence summary of your answer is your thesis statement. And so by quality searching, using Boolean logic, we have found this. Now, this is where the not comes in. What are we not looking for? Say that in this case, we actually don't want anything about Magic the Gathering because it is too many results and it's clogging up our results page. We can say not Magic the Gathering. Maybe we don't want anything about the Harry Potter phone game. Maybe we only want things that are having to do with the physical deck of Pokemon, and we don't want Pokemon Go. We can do any of these as a not. And it's the same thing. In your advanced search, it's one of those bubbles or boxes or circles. You fill it in with the word not in front of it. And that is going to eliminate those things from the search. So this is how we use Boolean logic to make a really good search. Here's a pro tip. These two processes are interchangeable. If you are having trouble coming up with a research question, start with a Venn diagram instead of the major things you want to investigate, and then use it to construct your research question. Or use your research question to construct your Venn diagram. You don't have to do these in order, because at the end of the day, research is not linear. Research is cyclical. And so everything we do feeds our searches and feeds our research question, and any of it can change at any time.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Yen, and I'm here to talk about how you can identify citations in the references and resources that you bring up in your searches. Now, the reason why this is so important is because when you know the citation type, whether it's a book or a journal article or a conference proceeding, any of those things, it makes it a lot faster and easier to find. It's also easier to citation chain backwards to find a body of research or a piece of work or things like that. The other thing is citations, identifying them and the different parts of a citation are often things that students miss on their quizzes and their finals. So what I wanted to do is give you a little bit of a cheat sheet, something that you can download below this video and use bits and parts of it to help you on your quizzes and finals. Okay, so citations, every single citation that you see has what I call a tell, clues to tell you whether or not it's a book, book chapter, journal article, conference proceeding, or a news article. I'm going to quickly go through some of these now. However, you also have a practice sheet that you can go through some of those citations yourself so you can see them. And there are answers at the very end so that you can check your work. And if you're still confused after this video, after the notes, after doing the practice sheets, please don't hesitate to come to one of us, ask questions, get that clarified so that it can help you with your future research. All right, so let's start with books, okay? And what I've done is I've just pulled from various different citation sources. You may see them in MLA, APA, Harvard, Chicago style. So each time, depending on what the publication is, your citations are going to look a little differently. But that's the reason why I kind of focus on certain characteristics that tell you what certain things are. So for books, you can see book titles usually are in italics. However, if you go electronically to search, they may or may not be in italics. But the big clue is that they're kind of simple. There's not a whole lot of detail in a book. The most important thing is you've got the book title, you've got the publisher, and the publication place. New York, San Francisco, as you can see in these examples, kind of tell you that it's a book because there's not much else. There's like a space where there's authors, date, title, and then the publisher. But it's the publisher and the title. Sorry, the publisher and the publisher location that tend to tell you it's a book. All right. Book chapters sort of look like a book, except there's two sets of names. And you can see that here. These are the authors that are mentioned in the beginning, and usually they are. And then there's editors that are mentioned after the title of the chapter, okay? So usually when you see a book chapter, you have the author names, the title of the chapter, and then the editor names, followed by the title of the book that it's found in. Same as the other book, you've got the publisher location, but here's the tip-off. Book chapters often have pages. So if you're looking and you're wondering if this is a book or a book chapter, look to see if there's two sets of names and look to see if there are two titles, okay? The first title is going to be the title of the chapter. Second title is going to be the title of the book. And then again, you've got the book publisher, location, and then another dead ringer that this is not just a book but a book chapter is the page numbers. So in a book chapter, you're going to have two sets of names instead of one. You've got the authors and the editors, which goes after the author. Usually the editors go after the chapter title, which is right here, Augmented Reality Teaching and Learning. And then you also have, as you can see, editors. EDS tells you it's editors. It's not the author. Editors are usually the people that go out to different authors and researchers and collect the chapters. They curate them. They see which chapters should go in the book. Sometimes they edit the chapters, and then they put them together and publish the book. That's why they're editors, but the author comes in front. So the author is the person that actually wrote it. The editors are the ones that kind of curated, invited the author to do it, read it, and put the whole book together, okay? And the editors are the ones that edit the book title, which here is Handbook of Research on Educational Communications and Technology. Now, going back, there's also another tell that you can find here, which is you still have the publisher, okay, which tells you it's a book. You also have that publication, that publisher location, just like the book, except now as you can see, instead of one set of names, you've got two. Instead of one title, which originally was the title of the book, you now have two, chapter title and book title. Okay? And then finally, like we said before, for book chapter, the other thing you hardly will ever see, unless, of course, it's a book chapter, are page numbers, because the chapter you have to kind of go and find it. Incidentally, when you are looking in the library for the chapter, you may want to look for the book instead of the chapter, because sometimes the chapters are not listed in the library catalogs, but the book is. All right, next, let's talk about journal articles. In a journal article, you're going to see, in addition to page numbers, one or two additional numbers. The first is this volume number, okay? And here you can see it's 27. And then issue number is right here, which is number 2. That's the issue. And then page numbers here, okay? Now, you're going to also see two titles again. The title of the article itself, and then the title of the journal that the article was found in. Usually, but again, if you're looking at electronic sources, it's not always the case. The journal title is in italics, okay? Oop, let me go back. I want to go, okay. Now in this one, you can also see it's here too. You see these extra numbers? 26.6. You also see the page number where they're found. These are tells that this is a journal article, okay? Here, you can see the author. You can see the title of the article in AI We Trust, Effects of Agency, Locus, and Transparency on Uncertainty Reduction in Human AI Interaction. And then you see the journal that it's in, Journal of Computer Mediated Communication. But again, it's these funny numbers right here, okay, that occur, that tell you it's a volume or something. And then in addition to the page numbers, okay? Now notice, depending on the citation that you find it, the year may be in different places. Here, the year is right after the author, which you normally see. But in this case, the year is right after the volume. So just another detail, but look for volume numbers, page numbers, issue numbers, two names, article name, journal name, and you're going to be good. All right, conference proceedings. The clues are in the words. So again, this might be something you may want to list in your notes. Look for words like proceedings, conference, annual meeting, transactions of, symposium, and annals. Sometimes you will also find a conference name. So here you'll notice, and conference proceedings are basically, you have a professional conference, people go to different presentations, sometimes they have a discussion. Conference proceedings are usually a record of that presentation meeting. Sometimes these presenters will create a paper for it. Sometimes it's notes from the paper. Sometimes it's summaries from people who attended the meeting. Whatever it is, the conference proceedings are a record of what happened in the meeting, okay? So like here, you can see the paper or conference proceeding is a cross-linguistic study of sound symbolism, the images and size. And this was presented at the annual meeting of the Berkeley Linguistic Society. So annual meeting is a dead ringer because conferences usually occur annually. In the second one, the word that you're looking for is proceeding, but also if it says conference, it is probably a conference proceeding. Next, news articles. Usually, not always, you have the month, date, and year. The other thing that's a dead ringer is usually there's the word news in it sometimes, not always. And also you'll find familiar titles, like for instance, New York Times or Washington Post, or even the name of your local paper is a news article, okay? The title of the newspaper is usually listed after the news article title, and then the news article title is usually, like the name of the newspaper, the title, let me say that again. The title of the newspaper is usually listed after the title of the news article, okay? And the title of the newspaper is usually in italics, like I said, not always. The other thing too is usually you'll see an exact date because it tells you the day when it was published, especially if this is a daily paper. But sometimes you may just get a month and a year if it's a monthly publication. So here again, you can see author name, Lauren Camera. It was published in 2022, exactly on October 24th, 2022, out of U.S. News, and their article was Pandemic Prompts Historic Decline in Student Achievement on Nation's Report Card. Okay. And that is it. Pretty easy. I think the best way that you can master this is to totally practice. Like pull a book out, go to the references, and see if you can identify what those different references are. Is it a book, a journal article, a conference proceeding, etc.? By the way, this video is not at all inclusive of everything. There are a lot more things out there, like blogs, like music, movies. All of these things have to be cited. Reports, theses, and so on. These all have to be reported and cited in a particular way. But this is going to give you some idea of where to find the information so that you can put it into a search engine and actually come up with the search record, okay? Like I said, I suggest that you grab the slides, pull up the practice, and get some practice doing it. And again, if you're still kind of stuck on different things, come see one of us. All right? It is good to see you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to a librarian, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hi there, I'm Dr. Yen, and I am here to talk about a common confusion about citation chaining. And I actually want to pair this up with two things to get you ready for your final. Okay, first is, say you are in your final and you look up citation chaining and you're like, oh shoot, I don't remember anything about citation chaining. What do I do now? All right, so you go to your book, okay? And then in this search thing, you can type in, and you can kind of see it already, citation chaining, or any term. And when you click on that, it will bring up where that term is listed. That's a way you can quickly go to the section that you need in order to find what you need to help you with the final, okay? Now, if you scroll down, what I'm going to do is actually go to a graphic that I highly suggest you either put in your notes or you put a version of it in your notes, okay? So when I scroll down on citation chaining, what I get is this beautiful graphic here, okay? And this graphic is going to help you understand what and why we citation chain forward and why we citation chain backward. So here is this graphic in a little bit more detail. And the reason why I put it here is because I want you to think of citation chaining as a timeline. All right? This right here is your original source. It's whatever paper you pulled up when you used Google Scholar or when you went to Parks Library or whatever. This is your original paper. Now, the way I think of it is you've got this paper, but you need to know more, right? If you are trying to, like, for instance, if you're in your paper and it mentions, say, a theory, and it just mentions it and it cites it in the references, and you want to know more about that theory because you think it could possibly be used for your own work, then what you're doing is you're looking at the past. You're looking at what papers this paper used in order to what papers this paper used in order to build its argument. So you're looking back at what these people used in order to create this paper. So that's past, that's backward citation chaining. Extremely helpful if you're trying to figure out how this individual built their knowledge. It's also a really good process for SIFT. So oftentimes, especially when we look in Google instead of Google Scholar, and we find an article or a blog or whatever, and it comes up with this fact or something, and you want to see whether or not it's true, you can go to its sources, and that is citation chaining backwards. You're going to see whether or not the sources it used were actually viable, were actually legitimate sources to build on this original paper. Sometimes when I've done that with like really popular articles and things like that, especially when they land in my social media, what I often find is that they echo each other. And then when you go to the actual original source that these, papers are all echoing from, you realize it wasn't very legitimate at all. Okay, so it's interesting because citation chaining is also a way of figuring out the viability, evaluating the viability and trustworthiness of the information that you're trying to find. Now, citation chaining forward will also help you in determining what do we think about whatever concept it is now. Okay, so you may have pulled a really good article. Maybe it is an author, a researcher that you follow. And that article was done in, 2019. And you're wondering, okay, what has that person done since then? How have they developed their articles, their thoughts, their ideas since this time? In order to do that, you citation chain forward. And what this means is the sources on this side cited the article that you have. That's why I kind of say it's past, present, future relative to the article that is on your desk in your hand relative to the book or whatever it is, your original source. When you look at who cited them, you're going forwards. When you're looking at who they cited, you're going backwards, okay? So let's look at citation chaining backwards real quick. So I have here the health and social impacts of playing Pokemon Go on various player groups. To citation chain backward, I actually go to the side and I look at references. Now, if you have a paper or what I call a dead tree copy of the journal article, you can go toward the end because the references are usually at the end, okay? Now, when I click on the references, this is what I get. Now, I want you to notice something here. Citation chaining backwards in time, right? This article was printed or published in 2021. When I look at its sources, they should all be either 2021 before August 2021, right? They should all be before August 2021. And sure enough, when you look at the references, notice 2018, 2017, 2017, 2017. They all go back. The other thing, like I said, how viable is the article that you're using? Take a look at who they're citing. Are these legitimate research articles, or are they blogs, or are they podcasts or TV shows? Are they primary or secondary sources? Are they popular or are they scholarly articles? These are all things to keep in mind as you are citation chaining, either forwards or backwards. Okay, now let's go back to this. So that was citation chaining in the back. Now let's look at how do we citation chain forward. There are three main search engines that will do this for you: Google Scholar, Scopus, and Web of Science. When you go to Google Scholar and type in that very article that we had, Health and Social Impacts of Playing Pokemon Go on Various Player Groups in Scholar, it will bring up the listing so you can get the article, but at the same time, you can see right here where other papers have cited it. Okay, so it's cited by 18. So what that means is from the time the article was published, these articles here went even further. These articles here and cited by 18 are 18 publications that used this one as its citation. And how do you know that? Because this article was written in 2021. When I go to and I click on how many were cited, the 18 that were cited, you'll notice everything is published after that date. The publication was 2021. This is 2022. This one's 2022, 2022, 2022, 2023. If you click on these and you go into their references, it should reference that original paper here. Okay? And that's it. That's all I have for citation chaining. I hope that makes a little bit more sense now. If it doesn't, please reach out to one of us. Your librarians are really here to help you succeed. And good luck on your final. Okay? See you soon. Bye.